Hi, thank you for joining me for our introduction to to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I'm going to start today with the chant to Ganapati, that's the remover of all obstacles. Om Gananantva Ganapati Gung Havamahe Kaving Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvan Lutipisi Dasadanam Om Shri Maha Ganapataye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. And as we begin, I'd like to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Annie Jones, um, and I have studied and practiced yoga for more than 30 years. I love chanting, and I love the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutras was actually the first thing that I ever learned to chant when I was inspired to chant. It's always stuck with me as a fabulous way of centering and grounding and uh, changing the energy inside of myself and around in my life. I have a passion for studying the ancient texts. Um, yeah, so with that, let's begin. Here's my websites here. You can find out a little bit more about me if you're so inclined. I've got a long history in yoga and chanting, and I'm just really thrilled to be here to share this with you today. So let's get started. Thank you for hanging with me as I learn to maneuver all this great technology that we have. Um, it's traditional as we begin to study any of the ancient texts that we honor the author or originator of that ancient wisdom, which in this case is Patanjali. So let us begin with the Ode to Patanjali, or the invocation for Patanjali. Yasyakparupamatyam prabhavati jagataha anekatha anugrahaya prakshina klesharashihi vishaya vishadharaha anekavaktra subhogi sarvajnana prasutihi bhujaga parikaraha priyate yasya nityam devo hi shaha savovyat sita vimalatanuhu yogado yogayuktaha yogena cettasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena Yopakarotam pravaram muninam Patanjalim pranjali ranatosmi Abahu purushakaram shankhachakrasidharinam Sahasrashirasam shvetam Pranamami Patanjalim Srimate Anantaya Nagarajaya Namo Namaha. So, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Interestingly, as we begin to teach yoga and teach the sutras, the very first Yoga Sutra says exactly this. It states what we're doing. Atha yoganushasanam. Atha, now we begin. Anushasanam, we begin the introduction in the study and practice of yoga. And so what is the Yoga Sutra? Let's start with that, and we'll kind of work our way through the entire process together. So the Yoga Sutra is this really, really old book. It really didn't even start as a book. It started as an oral tradition. Some say it's about 2,500 years old, and some say it's closer to 5,000 years old. I have a tendency to believe it's a little older, maybe somewhere in the middle of that. It's one of our definitive works on the introduction to how to practice, how to teach, and about the philosophy of yoga, what yoga is in terms of a practice or a philosophy. And so it's a great spiritual guide. The purpose of the guide is to bring each of us that chooses this path, that chooses to study yoga, to or towards our dharma so that we can embody our dharma. Our dharma simply being that we come back to our spiritual selves. We come back to our spiritual beings and are able to live with this spiritual being embodiment through this life. Who was Patanjali? Patanjali was an ancient sage and a scholar, and he did write the Yoga Sutras, but he didn't come up with it himself. He's not the first yogi or anything like that. What he did was he distilled many of the ancient wisdoms through the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, some of the Buddhist teachings, and he brought them together in this very succinct kind of way that you can bring about this change in your life that is very easy to follow. And that's one of the things that I was really drawn to it. I was always like, oh, which way should I go? And the path is very clearly laid out, but yet very open for each person in their own dharma. We all have our own dharma, right? The text lays out the path to liberation, the path to freedom. Freedom from pain, suffering, not saying that we'll never have pain and suffering, but simply that we are able to live within our spiritual selves. And so the sutras are set up in the form of short little aphorisms like Atha Yoga Nushasanam that pack a whole lot of meaning. And if we were to really unpack that sutra, we could talk about it for probably an hour. The short meaning is that we're going to start teaching yoga now, right? So the Yoga Sutra is made up of 195 of these little short, compact aphorisms packed full of meaning in 4 separate chapters. The word yoga, or sutra, excuse me, the word sutra means to thread or to suture, to sew things together. It's said it's like pearls on a string. Each one leads to a deeper understanding of the next one, leads to a deeper understanding of the next one. And so as we move through and as we practice and as we chant the Yoga Sutras, it's like weaving together material and spiritual lives, hopefully inspiring love, wisdom, and meaning into each one of our lives. Okay? Letting us each follow our own true nature, living in our own true nature, which is really one with the divine. The Yoga Sutra, as with many Eastern texts, is presented in Sanskrit. Why Sanskrit? Right? Sanskrit is an ancient language. It was the language of the sages. But more important, Sanskrit is a vibrational language. All languages are, except for that it's a broader language that really, each of the meanings vibrate and create this subtle change or the subtle meaning in your body. And so for this reason, it's traditional to learn the chants, to become proficient at the chants. The Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras. Once we're proficient at the chants, then we're given the meaning. And the reason for this is because we begin to feel what it means in a way that may go beyond words. It's very different than given, an intellectual meaning. Ata means now we begin. There's more to that. It can be very in-depth and changing. But when we chant it ourselves before we're given the meaning, it can go very, very deep. It can really spark remembrance in our souls, in our body, what that is and how that might resonate, how we can work with that for ourselves in our own personal lives. And so they were taught in a way that's called adhyayanam, right? Most of the Vedas, this is what it's taught, and that's by chanting and repeating. So I chant, you listen, and then you repeat. Now, I'm not there with you, so I can't hear any mistakes. I'm happy if you call me and we could talk about that. But so I chant, you listen, and then you repeat. And then we chant the whole thing together. And this is the way we're going to be doing this entire series. In this ongoing series of the Yoga Sutras, I will present one new sutra each week. I don't know that I'm going to be going in order. I don't know that I'm going to be picking them in any specific way. A lot of it is guidance. And so we're going to see what we get and see how it goes and kind of move along and learn from there. As I chant each sutra, I'm going to be presenting one sutra. The real deep meanings of the sutras, the personal meanings, come from chanting those, listening, reflecting on how that feels for you, what the words, how they sound like, how they move around in your mouth, how the sounds move around in your mouth, how you experience that. So I'm going to be giving you each sutra. I'm going to ask you to take some time, maybe even a couple of days, to really sit with the sutra, chant the sutra, meditate on what that means for you without the meaning, without the intellectual meaning or me giving you a meaning that I think or I feel within my own self. Then come back, it's going to be presented, and listen to the meaning. Then go back again. You can do some more meditation, some more chanting, and see how that feels for you. See what space that makes for you. See what it does. As we said, take some time with each sutra. Feel the sound, each word, each sutra all together. How does it feel in the moment, over a period of time, at the end of the day? At first it might be frustrating because you don't know the sutra, but as you begin to chant it to the best of your ability, there's some feelings and some energies that begin to move, and you're going to be able to feel what that feels for you. Feel it physically and emotionally, mentally. What does it feel like spiritually? Even take some time to write down, to journal those feelings, then go back and look at the meaning. What does it mean for you? Just the sound. What does it resonate like with you? Then go back and take a look at the meanings. I think the most important thing to remember is to honor whatever experience comes for you. Every person is going to experience and receive their understanding in a slightly different way based upon where they are right now and how it pertains to their lives. And sometimes it's like it's really a cool thing, and then you come back tomorrow and you don't even remember what you did. That's okay too. You know, listen to what was offered, listen to yourself, and the most important thing, enjoy the journey. All about the journey. Life. Life is what we live it. It's how we live it. The joy that comes from inside. Thank you for joining me for our introduction. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. I will be presenting, as I said, one sutra a week. I look forward to having you with me. Have a super awesome day.